This is the building of the Dnipro Court of Appeal in Kryvyi Rih. I have been here dozens of times. Civil and criminal cases were litigated here. But on December 6, 2024, a ballistic missile directly hit the court building. The judge's assistant was killed, and people had to dig themselves out from under the rubble. They had to rescue their loved ones from under the ruins.
Everyone believes that it won't happen to them. And when it hit and started collapsing, my first thought was, why? Why?
It was the end of the workday, 2 weeks before Christmas. Julia Kalinich's 7-year-old son just came over. He brought string lights to decorate his mother's office.
The child plugged in the string lights, walked over to the light switch and said, "Look how beautiful it is here." He turned to me, and at that moment, a missile struck. I opened my eyes and he was gone, only ruins and nothing else. The guardian angel was still watching over us because in such cases, I think you don't get out alive. My son remembers everything. He says, "Something fell on my chest and was pressing me down. I heard you screaming, 'Help, help!' And I stretched out my hand so you could find me."
For a judge, a court robe is not just a work attire, but a symbolic attribute that represents, first and foremost, impartiality and objectivity. A certain transformation takes place, both visually and psychologically.
For Judge Alexei Nesterenko, the war has changed many of his usual habits. Now, during court sessions, he constantly checks his phone. If there is an alarm and ballistic threats, he has only 2 minutes to get to a shelter.
Constant alarms, constant shelling. All this leads to negative consequences, to the postponement of court hearings, to increased duration of court proceedings. The number of court cases has really gone up, even though there's a full-scale invasion. It's up by a quarter if we compare 2024 to the years before the war.
There are more cases and fewer judges. The shortage of personnel has led to the only possible outcome.
The judge had to hold dozens of court hearings a day to get through all these cases. It's like one person doing the work of 3 people, but we try to follow all the procedures and stick to the deadlines for each case. In my opinion, the increase in the number of lawsuits shows that people trust the court and go to court even during the war. Life goes on, and so do trials.
However, in the early days of the full-scale invasion, things were different. When the enemy forces invaded from the south, it became impossible for certain courts to do their job.
I understood that the situation would be dire. I understood that Kherson would be occupied, that it would be impossible to carry out justice in Kherson. Another decisive factor was probably the fact that both my son and my husband were officers of the special services, thus staying in Kherson was not an option.
Judge Olena Kovby from the Kherson Circuit Administrative Court made a life-changing decision to join the armed forces of Ukraine.
I come from a military family, so from early childhood, all through my childhood, I knew what an order was, what it meant to carry out an order. I was always proactive, a leader, and I wanted to be, well, probably because of my personality, in a combat unit.
Olena underwent her training and battle coordination in the Vinnytsia region. Most of her new colleagues in arms had no combat experience at that time.
These were committed individuals who consciously chose to defend their country. We studied topography and tactical medicine. As it turned out, I am capable of shooting. My standard weapon was an AK-74, which I sighted in at 100 and 200 meters. In other words, I was prepared to take part in combat operations if necessary. I chose the call sign Themis. She is a well-known symbol of justice. In one hand, she holds scales, in the other a sword, sword of justice. I had an assault rifle in my hands.
We spent the night in the woods, in tents. In the evening, they asked me to come out of the tent. The company's activists gathered there. They asked me a question. Who are you? I said, I'm a mechanic driver. And who are you in real life? I said, well, a man. And what is your profession? I said, a judge. Everyone's eyes widened. So you'll really get in a tank and go into battle? Yes, I said, if I get the order, I'll get in a tank and I'll definitely go into battle.
Yuri Rachkeluk made up his mind on February 24, 2022. As in addition to his civilian profession of a judge, he had two military professions, mechanic driver and tank driving instructor.
On the very first day in the evening, I was at the recruitment office asking to be drafted. I showed my military ID and my specialty, but the commission officer said that as long as I was the only one in court, the only judge, no one would draft me. So the next day, I visited him again. He asked me not to come back because nothing would come of it.
But he succeeded. Yuri waited until another judge was assigned to his district court. Then he immediately wrote a letter to the 17th Tank Brigade.
They tried me out as a mechanic driver, and I was assigned to a combat crew. After that, we were given combat orders, and 7 tanks from our company, including my tank, set off on our own to the town of Bakhmut.
To the fortress of Bakhmut, where former judge of the Kherson Circuit Administrative Court, Olena Kovby, had already arrived for her second rotation.
The second time in Bakhmut, the second rotation, it was already urban combat in Bakhmut itself. Well, Bakhmut is just a name because the town was destroyed by then, there were just ruins, and our guys were holding a house, a basement. They said they would be on the ground floor and the enemy would be on the upper floor, they could even hear them.
First, she was a soldier. Then she was appointed as a head of the Civil Military Cooperation Group. Among her many responsibilities is communication with the relatives of those killed and missing in action.
When such news arrives, everyone is on edge, and emotions, let's say, are not always positive. I was a judge, and my experience of communicating with different people helped me to calm things down a bit. I would say that I was also there in the combat zone, that I wasn't behind the front lines, so yes, it's hard, but we're doing everything we can. I saw death as it was. It's not a coffin, it's not a soldier in uniform, it's just how they were carried out of their positions. Life goes on, we honor our fallen, but to be honest, I don't see them in my dreams, but I do remember them.
My name is Olena Dudzenko. I am the daughter of Supreme Court Judge Leonid Mikolayevich Loboyko. It would be by chance that people would find out who my father was. They would say, no way, he doesn't look like a judge and you don't look like a judge's daughter. What are we supposed to look like then? He was the kind of person you could always ask for advice. He never pushed his authority on anyone. He was super supportive. with his smile and jokes. He had a favorite joke with my brother's wife. He would always ask her when he saw her, "Yulia, what have you done for Ukraine today?" Just any day, morning or evening. My daughter Katya would make amulets out of modeling clay for her grandfather, which he would take with him to the examination when he was participating in a competition-based selection to the Supreme Court. He traveled to Kiev with his favorite brown briefcase, carrying an amulet in it. We are sure that it did the trick.
With the start of full-scale war, Leonid Mykolaiovich no longer had any days off. From Monday to Friday, he attended court sessions at the Supreme Court in Kyiv. On Saturday mornings, he and his wife would travel to his small home village of Kozachya Lopan.
It was medicine, food, cigarettes. It was a generator and fuel for it regularly. Dad loved dogs very much, so before every trip they would stop by the market and buy some treats for the dogs, which he said they would like and which would make them happy.
You started talking about dogs and used the present tense and then corrected yourself for using the past tense. Did you mean to say loves?
Yes. Because it's like he's always there.
On September 28th at around 1 p.m., I received a call from my mother. She said something like, well, I remember her saying, "Alonushka, Dad was killed by a drone." As it happened, he covered my mother with his body during the strike. His arm was on my mother. She quickly opened the door, ran around the car, then went back to my father, but he was already dead. When we were taking his belongings out of his office, I don't believe in symbols or signs because I have a scientific mindset, just like my father. But when we were taking things out of his office, a white dove flew in and it sat there on the windowsill until we left. We had discussions about justice and legality. My father went on work trips with colleagues from the Supreme Court to The Hague, Croatia, and Slovenia. The purpose was to learn from their experience how to deal with war crimes and how to investigate them. I was just so angry when I heard him saying, "I understand what you say, but for example, if a Russian soldier was following orders, he was a tank driver, he drove a tank, he was a shooter, he fired, then that was his duty. It's not a war criminal. The war criminal is his commander. If he added something of his own, took the initiative, then he is a war criminal." I said, "Well, that's not right. They invaded us." And he said, "Well, that's the law."
There are approximately 160,000 registered criminal proceedings related to full-scale aggression, and these are not only war crimes. This is a huge number, a huge workload, and a huge amount of complexity. In Yugoslavia, all trials took place after the war had ended, and many of the defendants were physically detained. Our situation is different. We have very limited access to the documents from the aggressor country. The main procedural tool is the consideration of cases in absentia in order to substantiate the facts of war crimes, which is extremely important for us.
Будь ласка, передайте текст присяги секретарю судового засідання.
The number of court hearings conducted via video conferencing has increased fourfold. There is no need to visit the court. One can use a mobile device to attend the court hearing. explain one's position to the court, ask questions, answer questions that arise, and receive a court decision. For example, today we are hearing a lawsuit regarding the establishment of the time and manner of communication between a father and his child. Unfortunately, such cases are not uncommon. Due to the war, many families have broken up and moved away, with children in other countries and parents remaining in Ukraine, leading to disputes over how parents should communicate with their children, as well as other contested and conflicting issues. It is the court that helps to resolve these disputes.
Can the father communicate with his child via FaceTime?
Please wait. We will hear the witness's answer.
The father was communicating with his child. He withdrew the application from the court.
The witness says that the communication was taking place in the presence of...
Can you provide the court with evidence that I was the one who blocked the number on the child's phone?
E-court is a super powerful tool that solves tons of problems. If we did justice the old school way, like not filing or getting documents electronically, it would be so much less efficient.
The judicial system has sufficient strength to withstand the war, no matter how long it lasts. As practice shows, there are courts where 1, 2, or 3 judges work, and they have the right to resign, but they do not exercise this right. They do not resign, they continue working, including in courts close to active military operations, where artillery and explosions can be heard every day, where FPV drones fly. Courts operate and administer justice, hearing cases.
When I turned 60, I could only continue serving by signing a contract. The battalion commanders offered me a contract to become a deputy personnel officer. I said, sorry, but I don't want to sit in headquarters if I'm not allowed back to the tankers.
Yuri Rachkeluk returned to his native village, to his local court. His life seemed to have made a full circle, but it was no longer the same as before.
Money, titles, cars, all of that comes and goes. The most important things are life and true, loyal friends. I would say that there, in the war, it was a little simpler somehow. There you knew that your friends were there and you had to go into battle with them. This is what a judge's hands should look like in wartime. When I came back here, it felt very strange at first. First of all, I couldn't sleep normally. I had to get used once again to having access to water, toilet, and electricity. But you get used to the good things quickly, so I understand my brothers in arms who are there. I keep in touch with them. I visited them 3 times.
Pal Petrovich, good day, dear. How are you?
Hello, Vasilich. Everything is fine thanks to your prayers. Without you, of course, nothing would have worked out.
Come on, stop it.
We are fighting little by little, holding on, training.
Pal Petrovich, tell me, have you changed your attitude toward judges during this time or not?
You are the first judge I respect 150%. People like you are very rare indeed. Judges like you have changed my opinion of them for the better. May God grant us more like you.
Thank you, Pal Petrovich.
Before the war, there were 2 guys from Novorodka, where I used to work in criminal investigation unit and solved crimes they committed. Then as a judge, I sentenced them. And when they found out I was fighting in the war and they were too, they got in touch with me. And one of them even said, Uncle Yura, I have a favor to ask you. What is it? If the war ends and you are still working as a judge and I get caught, I want you to judge me.
It was in Bakhmut. I was wearing armor and a helmet, and there were weapons next to me.
She went through an interview with the Ethics Council amid the incessant cannonade. After 2 rotations at the battle zone, Olena Kovby decided to return to the ranks of judges. The commander did not object. In January 2023, she was elected to the High Council of Justice.
What I took from military service was a sense of duty to the state. If not you, then who? And that the decision is yours to make. The decisiveness I developed in those circumstances is probably helping me a lot now. Many people say that I am harsh. My colleagues say that I am harsh when I really need to make a quick decision. The main objective of the High Council of Justice is to form an honest, highly professional judiciary with a disciplinary inspectorate selected through open competition.
A meritocratic selection process has been introduced in the judicial system. Selection based on virtues and on qualities, not in terms of popularity, not in terms of connections, but strictly based on personal qualities.
We are not getting rid of excessive judges, but disreputable ones. This is new today, both in Ukraine and in principle in European countries.
War, like all hardships, unites people and the nation. It has also united the judiciary, making it more mobile and practical.
The right to justice is guaranteed by the Constitution and cannot be denied or taken away from people, even during wartime.
I always say that Ukraine will be much better after the war, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, because we truly deserve it. Our country is capable of this, and our people should get everything they merit.